This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to The Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, we are in the very lovely studios of Pod Populi, podcasts for the people. And one of the advantages of recording this show in here is every once in a while I get to eavesdrop on another podcast, which has always been one of the benefits of podcasting in a studio. Back in our podcast one days, they had all kinds of crazy characters in there that would be sharing the mics with us. That seems different, a little bit different now looking back on it. So they had Larry King in there, and they had a lot of kooky celebrities and famous people. And so you'd see people coming and going, and you'd eavesdrop a little bit on podcasts, and it was a fun thing. But doing one of the many podcasts that we do in this studio is Jen Sheft, the Bachelor winner. She does a podcast called From the Bachelor to the Burbs. You've heard her on this show a couple of times. And I was eavesdropping on a show she did, and she had a guest on there a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, I need to mooch that guest for my own purposes here, because she had a lot of things to say, and I had a lot of questions for her. So I lured her into the Great Love Debate world. She is a behavioral therapist. We'll get into what that means in a second. Brittany LaCava, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for roping me in with Larry King reference.
Larry King reference.
I often get.
Oh, Larry,
yeah.
The late lamented R.I.P. Larry. But any female guest we would have in, he'd be like, "What's your name?"
Right. Which and
Larry
him
got
being
the
the stud
chicks.
he was.
He was married 7 times.
I know. That's impressive.
Props to you, Larry.
Yes.
Anyway, obviously, if you're at a cocktail party and you say what you do,
Yeah.
do people say, "What does that mean"?
That's usually the second question. Honestly, before that, it's, "Oh no, I better." You're probably judging me, right? You're probably analyzing what I'm doing, which I am, but usually not too in depth.
Are you always scanning a room?
Yes and no. Who isn't? You know who?
Well, yeah, I'm indifferent to my surroundings at all times. But if somebody's out with you back in your swinging single days, if somebody's on a date with you, you were always sort of curious about human behavior. How did you fall into this?
Why are you doing this? Why? Mostly just the why of things.
Right.
What's driving this in you? I'm horrible at doing it to myself because it's just total chaos.
Oh, so you're not completely analyzed, like, why did I do that, or what made me do that?
No, because I feel like I have a pretty good handle. It's usually because I wanted to.
That's a good reason.
Which honestly is pretty much why anyone's doing anything. So,
well, I was going to get into that, but you brought it up. How much of it is they're doing things because they want to, and how much are they doing it because of habit, or they didn't think about it another way, or they just, a lot of things, it's like, well, that's what I always do. That's what I always get. And we don't give it nearly as much thought as you think.
Right.
Which to me, especially in terms of love, dating, and relationships, I don't believe people are as set in their ways as they think they are, because they just are in patterns of behavior.
Right.
That's my amateur analysis of this.
No, but that's pretty close to what exactly happened. So at some point, whatever it is that they were doing, they got some sort of reinforcement for it. People tend to do things either to get something or get rid of something. So at some point, let's say you responded to a text message in a funny way to somebody, it was pleasing to that person. So then that person's more likely to respond to your text messages going forward. When people tend to get comfortable with things, obviously people would rather do things that they're more comfortable with as opposed to things that make them uncomfortable, which is when you get stuck in those patterns of, well, this is just what I've always done.
Right.
And why change that if it's working? But other times, I think they don't realize that there's other ways to get that same reinforcement. You wouldn't know it without just trying it. So
Right. So that sort of makes sense, and I agree with you on that. It's people, most of our habits and behaviors come from 3 years old, or however we raise or however we behave, and we early on learn to do things that made us as comfortable as possible.
Right.
Whether we hid from monsters or whether the sound of a parent's voice. I've said on this podcast where I grew up in a yelling household, so I am not bothered by yelling the way somebody who it doesn't have an effect on me.
Right, yeah, Italian household.
Right, so there were loud voices, big personality, and I'm like, oh, so that doesn't mean anything to me that somebody shouted in a moment.
Right.
Not good. I eventually had to figure out, well, how did that manifest itself in my own communication patterns, and what kind of stimuli was that to me? I had to do the work and sort of look at that.
Right.
But to most people, they're just like, that's what I know, that's how I raise, that's what I react to.
Right. Yeah, that's what my grandpa did and my father did and now I do it because that's just what's been done.
Fighting Howies.
Yeah.
What is the first step though somebody should take if they want to look at their own behaviors before they look at somebody else's behaviors? Is there something that you'd be like, do you look at the things that make you comfortable or do you look at the things that don't make you comfortable? I'm afraid of two things, very afraid in this world. I'm afraid of height and I'm afraid of snakes.
Okay.
And the other day I climbed a small mountain in Arizona that was both, there was height involved and I'm sure there were snakes involved.
Right.
And the reason I did that was because I'm trying to push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm certainly no mountain climber, but I'm like, how much of my behavior is like, I think I'm afraid and maybe I'm not afraid. So it was a little experiment on myself. Yeah.
Well, so what would, for you to classify yourself as afraid, like if you would have gotten to a point where, okay, this is the threshold, what would that feel like? What would that look like?
I would be running back down the mountain.
Right.
What would that like? What if I had encountered a snake or I heard a rattle on the trail?
Yeah.
In my mind, I feel like I would have just frozen.
Right.
Like I had to think about
Standard
that. Would I run? Would I flight or fight? I think I would have just frozen.
Yeah.
That didn't feel like a good look to me. And even thinking about that way, it was all bad. So I had to really think about that in the moment. Like, what would I do if this happened?
Right. So that's pretty much it. So again, thinking of that why am I doing this? Why do I not like heights? Why do I not like snakes? I feel like why don't I like snakes is a pretty standard.
Yeah, I think why would you like snakes? A lot of people love snakes.
Love them.
They love them. The jackass walking around with one around his neck, the chicks dig it.
I know.
Everybody wants the IG photo with the snake guy.
My brother had a corn snake growing up, and it would literally crawl up your and snuggle like right here in your like shoulder neck area. So I don't know. I get it but also like, have you tried dogs? Like those are great.
I know people are like, oh, it's just a little baby snake. To me, it's a python.
Right.
They're all
of them are anacondas.
Right.
Yes. But yeah, just thinking of what's driving that. Where did that start? Where did that come from? Why? Everything is just a why. Why do I do this?
Right. And people don't like to ask why enough.
Right.
My whole life's built around asking why to other people's much great annoyance.
Right.
Because they don't want the answer, or they don't care about the answer, or the answer is going to make them do something they don't want to do.
Right. It's going to push that discomfort
to
a place that not everyone is comfortable going.
Right. And that gets into, the dating space. People want to blame the other person all the time and why their relationships don't work out. Or I can't believe I keep dating this series of jerks and narcissists and crazy people and bitches and gold digger. And they're like, I'm like, do you really believe that you have the worst luck in the world that you just dated?
You found all of them
and you got 30 people in a row.
Yeah.
Terrible. And that's what it is, that it's the people out there that are causing it. And nobody ever wants to turn the mirror back on themselves.
Oh, no, never. That's uncomfortable. That's the discomfort. 2 rules of thumb for me. for sure steer clear of anyone who calls someone without an actual diagnosis a narcissist.
Yep.
Or men that refer to women as females.
Females. Okay.
Yeah, females are always
people, we flippantly, and a lot, it really ramped up in the last 10 years, throwing her out like, oh, he's such a narcissist. There's a clinical diagnosis, and almost nobody is an actual narcissist.
Like, did you
they
consult
probably just
the
didn't
DSM-5?
Right. They probably just didn't like you
No.
very much.
Right. Yeah. Or they were just a dick.
Or a dick. And there's a big gap between clinically diagnosed narcissism and just fucking asshole.
Well,
and
yeah.
assholes can change, I think.
That's true.
So we did a podcast, I think it's still our most popular episode of this show we've ever done. And it was about, I have the theory that men should be, and want to be trained. And a lot of people react badly when I say that because they're like, they're not dogs. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's about just like a fitness instructor or a football coach, that you are basically giving them the roadmap and the steps to success in your world. All we know is what the last girl liked, and we probably found that out too late.
Right.
But if you give us information in a positive manner, and you positively reinforce our behaviors when we do something right, I believe the men will do just about anything.
Yeah.
Okay? It's when we hear oh my God, you're not going to wear that, are you?
You're like, no, I'm going to wear it every day.
Right. It's like, and if you just said, oh my God, you look so hot in a suit, wear the fucking suit.
Right.
It's the way we communicate information that leads men or women not to want to change the behavior, because you're just getting beaten down. But if you dangle that carrot, so to speak, in a proper fashion, we will jump up and get it. We will do whatever you want. The problem is in the communication of the information, and a lot of people don't even know the information they want. A lot of women, especially, know what makes them unhappy.
Right.
They don't have the list of what makes them happy right there, nearly as accessible, because they haven't spent as much time thinking about it. So they think about all the time what they don't like, and they communicate a lot what they don't like. And he's like, I don't know what.
Okay, so I have this list of things I'm not supposed to do.
I don't know what I am supposed to do, because I'm not sure you know what you like.
Oh, we don't.
Right. We constantly look backwards at the bad stuff. And so I think that men or women will, if you give us a roadmap to your happiness, I think we'll do whatever.
Yeah. Well, so what you had said about the positive communication, so in my world, negative reinforcement only stops a behavior. It doesn't change anything. The positive reinforcement is what changes it. So obviously, and that seems, saying it out loud, that sounds like, well, duh. Like, if somebody tells me if someone says something negative or mean to me, of course, like, I'm going to stop that, but that's not telling me what to do instead.
Right.
So, like you said, hey, you look really sexy in that suit. Hope you wear it again sometime. Next date night.
Great.
All sorts of dolled up.
Yeah. Then we're not showing up in the, Baker Mayfield jersey on the date.
Right. Which, I don't know, some people, that's
some
their
people,
thing.
Some people would like that.
Yeah.
But I've said this before. We always get the smack on the nose. We very rarely get the pat on the nose, if you want to do the dog analogy.
Right.
We will absolutely hear when we screwed up. And we don't necessarily hear when we did good. But when you want to train something, we do give the dog a treat, but we don't get anything. It's just like, well, you should know better, or of course that's the way it should be. We really don't know. And we think we like to do certain things. I like to do this on my Saturdays. This is what time I like to go to bed. This is what I like to wear. This is my preference in a partner. All these kind of things that are rooted more in behavior and habits than necessarily they are in your head or your heart. Yeah.
Well, and I think I agree that anyone is trainable. No one's going through, hopefully no one's going through life like, God, I hope I disappoint so many people today. Like, that's, you want the people that you're interacting with, or dating or anything to have a positive experience with you, unless, you're Harvey Weinstein or something.
Right.
It's not like, something that you're really actively, it's reinforcing to have a positive interaction with other people. So I think that the thing that people don't take into consideration when it comes to relationships and partners and behavior and shaping all that stuff.